The 2022 May Conference. Dr. Mark Brouker, Lessons from the Navy, Part 2.
All right, let's just do a little recap of, I see a couple of new faces, so let's just do a little quick recap. What we basically said this morning was this leadership stuff, and my leadership was learned through the military, the Navy in particular, but it's the principle, the behaviors are the same no matter what. If you do these things, the data is irrefutable, your team will perform at a higher level, irrefutable. And what we basically said was this, is when you take care of your people, they'll work hard for you. It's as simple as that. The question is, okay, what can you do as a leader to get people to conclude that I care for you? Because if it's not genuine, it's not going to happen. It's got to be genuine. So that's what we talked about this morning, and that's what we'll talk about this afternoon. A couple other things real quick is, everything we do, every interaction you have with a staff member, every interaction, whether it's an email, passing in the hallway, social media, anything, is an opportunity to build that trust or create fear. It's mutually exclusive. You can't do both. Something's going to happen if I walk past you and said, "Good morning, good to see you again," and what's your name, sir?
Reedy.
Reedy, good morning, Reedy, good to see you. That's going to, it's not going to hurt. If I do that a lot and all of a sudden I don't say anything to you, that's going to be like, oh, what just happened? So everything we do, and embrace it. Embrace it. Don't run from it. That's how we build strong teams. And we kind of talked about the influence you have. We won't go through that study again. It's a fascinating study. It shows that strong leadership builds a more resilient soldier, frankly. Irrefutable data that's been replicated in other studies. So what I did not appreciate at any level of leadership during my Navy career was the influence I had. And I suspect most of us in here, probably no one, has a really full appreciation of the influence you have over the people you're either coaching or you're leading in your clubs. It's profound. It is absolutely profound. All right, anything else that maybe I missed or anything, any thoughts, anything we want to clarify? We have an hour, which is perfect. We're right on schedule. Anything that I said this morning, want any clarification or anything? Questions? Please, sir.
Mark, do you have any thoughts around the relevance of trust and delegation as a leader in trusting your team to succeed or not?
Well, delegating, to me, here's what I would do, and this is a great question. Let's talk about delegating. Admiral Nimitz, I'm writing a book on Admiral Nimitz. A guy ran the war in the Pacific, and he created a high reliability organization before the term was even known. It's really fascinating. We could go on and on about that. Hopefully, at another event, I'll be talking to you. We'll be talking about that case study. It's an amazing case study, and no one talks about Admiral Nimitz. I don't want to throw Craig under the bus, but General MacArthur was a pretty egotistical guy. He sucked all the energy, frankly, out of the Pacific, and Nimitz was kind of stuffed with crumbs. But what Nimitz did, and what all great leaders do, and frankly, I learned this from a buddy of mine, when a task comes across your desk, Mark, a task comes, whatever it is, the first thing I would do is there anybody who works for me could remotely do this task? Maybe it's a stretch, but do I think Ken could handle this? Yeah, I think he could. It's a stretch. He's never done it before. Ken, let me tell you, I just came across my, and if no one else can do it, you got it. But literally think, who can do this task who's on my staff? And maybe it's a stretch, but let's stretch that person. And you obviously got to keep track of this, follow up. But if I gave that to you, Mark, and you maybe knew the organization, I gave the task to you and said, "Hey man, I know you're new, but I know I got this in you." It's going to make you feel good and give you an opportunity to excel. So delegating is key. You can't do all this stuff alone. So do that exercise. Something comes across your desk. Who else can do this? And then boom, give it to me. I don't know if that answers the question, but it does build trust. If I'm giving you stuff that's maybe a little bit outside your comfort zone, oh man, that's beautiful. That builds trust. Sir.
Yeah, maybe as a follow-up to what Mark is saying, I think a lot of times managers won't delegate because they want it to be done right, and they tend to micromanage, and they tend to not let go of things.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's people who will die a young death.
Yeah.
They will. They will die, statistically, they will die younger than someone who delegates. and they'll be miserable. They'll probably have 5 marriages. Seriously, this data is irrefutable. So that's your choice. Your choice. Again, life is choices, leadership is choices. You can say, I want this perfect and I'm the only person who can do it. I mean, that's a pretty strong statement, and I'm going to do it all. Well, you're not going to be successful. And people will be a churn, the attrition rate will be enormous, and you will die younger than you normally would, statistically. You might live to be 110 if you got great genes, but probably not. So it's your choice. And someone might make a mistake, so I give it to Mark, and Mark screws it up. Well, there's an opportunity to build trust, saying, hey, Mark, I gave it to you, I own that. Jocko Willink, a guy we kind of talked about, this guy is a Navy SEAL, does this for a living. What I do, he's much better, he's amazing. A Navy SEAL, he's really good. But his book is called Extreme Ownership. If anything goes wrong, you own it. I mean, it's the extreme, which is hence the name of the book. But if I gave that to you, Mark, and you failed, what I should do is say, Mark, I gave it to you. I thought I gave you everything, but that was my bad. You weren't ready for that, so my bad. I won't do that. I try not to do that again. Will that build trust with Mark? Now, if you screwed it up because you're coming in late, and that's a whole different ballgame. Assuming you gave it your best shot, that's my bad. So I don't know. There's no bad that can come from that. Now, the project may get delayed, and that, the other thing I'll tell you is when I don't know who your bosses are, maybe boards of directors or whatever, a big job that you have in managing up is if everything's important, nothing's important. If everything's important, nothing is important. So you have to have the mindfulness to say, again, who are your bosses? If you're running you're a director of tennis,
General manager.
What's that?
General manager.
General manager, okay, well there you go. And then probably you got a whole spectrum, the whole bell curve of general managers. Some that are awesome and some that are just terrible. And there's everything, this is important. Mark, you got to get this done. You got to say, hey man, and I had a boss, I have a phase of the guy I told you about. A great boss, he was a thinker. Very dangerous to be a thinker with a lot of power. This guy was a thinker. He had all these ideas. And the first day I went into his office, he was my boss. And he ran this whole, huge complex of military installations across the Pacific. 800,000 employees, I think he had. So it was massive. And this guy had all these ideas. And so I'd go into his office, and I didn't know this guy from home. I walked in one day, and first day, I didn't know what to expect. I never worked for an admiral before. He goes, Mark, I got some ideas. Here they are. He's spitting these out. I said, sir, time out. Let me get a pen. So I'm sort of writing all these things down, and he wanted them all done. And there's no way in hell we could get all these things done. So after about a month of this, I went into him, and I said, sir, you gave me these 12 great ideas, and they're all good ideas. But sir, what are the 2 that you really the most? Mark, they're all important. I said, sir, come on, let's just, the pipeline's this big. What do you think? 2. What are the 2? All right, that one and that one. And I always delivered on that one and that one. And the others, sometimes they fell by the wayside and sometimes they didn't. And I'd keep them brief, but I delivered on the ones he thought the one, and I pressed him. So everything's important, nothing's important. The pipeline is only so much for your staff. And so I don't know how we got on that topic. I guess maybe the question managing up is, you've got to have the mindfulness to say we can't get all this done. And hopefully you got a boss that has some reasonableness about them. I don't know where I got that question, but I just threw it out there. Anything else? Those are really good comments about, I guess, delegation and increasing build the trust. All right, anything else? All right. Do you have a comment? No? Okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries. You're my eyes with the beautiful scenery. Sometimes I just see silhouettes. I thought I saw your angle. All right. So the first thing we talked about, the first behavior was knowing your staff. We kind of went through that. And the other thing I would just say is that I'm glad we had the break. Key stakeholders. I don't know who your key stakeholders are. I can imagine, but maybe, I don't know, maybe the mayor here in a small town, probably a good person to get to know. So if I were in your shoes, I would just think about who are the people who are critical to my success. And if you haven't taken them out to lunch, take them out to lunch and just tell them. Be honest. Say, listen, you're critical to my success. I want to get to know you. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I want to hear about yours, but don't talk business. But if the first conversation you have with the mayor is something that's really, really difficult and you don't even know this person's name, that's going to be hard. You're going to be in a position of not in a good position. So think of the key stakeholders you have and have that conversation, get to know them, and buy a lunch. It'd be the best $50 you ever spend. Okay, so let's talk about this second, be visible. I didn't realize the power of this until I kind of intuitively, I think we all understand that when you build relationships with people, it builds trust. So this happened to me, and it's a true story. It's an anecdotal story, but it's so powerful I want to share with you. So I'm in command in Bremerton, this hospital up in the Pacific Northwest, up near Seattle. Been there about a month, or maybe 2 months, and I had about 1,500 people, 400 civilians. There's a lot of civilians work on these Navy installations. Basically, government service employees come to work in their civilian clothes and had about 1,000 active duty. But these civilians were getting nervous about something because what they were nervous about is the government was going to shut down. The government was not, Congress wasn't going to pass a budget. In 2009, this was a pretty novel event. Now it's almost every year, unfortunately. But in 2009, it was a big deal. And this hadn't happened in many years. And what was potentially going to happen to my 400 GS employees, they weren't going to get paid. They were going to get furloughed, basically laid off. Big deal. I had no decision-making in this whatsoever because every civilian across the country was dealing with this. I just had a little speck up in Bremerton. And I had no decision-making. So every time I got an email from Washington, D.C. about this, I would send it to all of them so they knew as much as I did because I was just a conduit of information. My assistant came up to me, Ken Iverson, great guy. He said, Mark, I think you need to get in front of the people and just have some town hall meetings. Just basically, just talk with them and maybe answer some questions, but they're really nervous. You need to get in front of them. I said, that's kind of a dumb idea, Ken. I don't have any information to share. He goes, he convinced me to do it against my better judgment. I thought it was going to be a waste of time. So I get up on the stage, like 300 people in this audience. I said, hey, I'm here to answer any questions you have on the furloughs, potential lockdowns. Sir, what's the likelihood of this happening? Well, I don't know. It would depend on Congress if they pass the budget. Sir, what about back pay? We don't get paid. We're going to get back pay. We're going to get paid eventually. Well, I don't know. That would depend on the point is, I kept track of how many questions I was actually answering. I didn't answer one question. I want to prove myself right and my system wrong. I had an ulterior motive here. The whole hour, I did not answer one question, just as I predicted. And I almost came back to my office. I almost threw it back into space. I was feeling self-righteous. Never a good place to be as a leader. But I was thinking, I'm right, he's wrong. Well, you can't make this stuff up. Here's what happened. 2 months later, after that, we had this thing called a Command Climate Survey. Basically, it's an all-employee survey that you've all done, anonymous. You're trying to figure out, does the leadership trust, do I trust the leadership? And that's what it's really measuring. And it's broken into cohorts. Young enlisted people, senior enlisted people, the civilians that I had these town hall meetings with, their cohort was measured, they trusted me. What was fascinating is everyone trusted me, thank goodness. That was a good thing, because you get fired if they don't, frankly, and these are very powerful surveys. The civilians that I had these town hall meetings with, their trust in me was significantly higher than any other group. Significantly higher. What's even more fascinating is you can make comments, anonymous comments, one after another from these civilians. Captain Brouker answered all our questions on furloughs. He answered all our questions. I'm thinking, who the hell are they talking about? I didn't answer one question. I didn't answer one question, but their trust in me surged. So what I learned from that, and that study I talked about this morning, that Michigan study, you don't have to have answers when you're walking around. You don't have to, basically, you don't have to bring any value. You don't have to bring any value. They just want to know that, hey, you're here, you're for us. And during COVID, when COVID broke out a couple of years ago now, I was doing a lot of coaching of hospitals, CEOs, and they were very reticent to, maybe March of 2020, no one knew what the hell this thing was. It was pretty scary. I remember flying into Seattle, I was meeting this CEO of a hospital up there that just had these deaths, the first hospital had deaths. And I had to convince him, he's a good guy, he gets it. He's actually a Marine Corps pilot. He ended up going to med school, he's running this huge hospital. But he was reticent to get in front of his people because he goes, Mike, I don't have any answers for him. Listen, what am I going to say about COVID? I don't know anything. I said, Jeff, it doesn't matter, man. Get in front of them and calm them down. And just your calmness will bring tranquility. They need to see your leadership, your calm leadership. And he did, and things went very well. So the point is, so if you're feeling a buzz, amongst your staff about something. I don't know. Pick anything. Maybe there's a buzz the place is going to get cut in half because of staffing. Who knows? It's usually bad stuff. Never good stuff is buzzing. It's usually bad stuff. If you hear a buzz, just get your people together and say, hey, I've heard a buzz about, layoffs. Yes, revenues are down. Right now, that is not being contemplated. Or it is being contemplated. It just, we don't want to have layoffs, but we might have to. I promise you we'll do it as quickly as we can, and you'll know as soon as possible, and we'll do it as compassionately, whatever. But you don't have to have the answers. But if you're feeling a buzz, man, they need to see it. Really, really important. All right, so let's just, and I talked about this other one. When you're walking around, just listen. And I think someone asked me over here, they said, should you just say, what do you need? What can I do to help? That's beautiful. Walk around and say, what can I do to help? The key is that you got to get back with them and say, here's what I found out, whether it fixes it or not. But following up is the key. And then the other thing is this. At the end of the day, whatever role you're in, you're making decisions. You got to make decisions. And you're never going to have all the information. Never. The point is, though, the more information you get from people, good information, not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, you'll make better decisions more times than not. There's no guarantees. But when you're walking around and you build this trust, people will kind of tell you what's going on. It's just a beautiful thing. The best intel I ever got was walking around in any job I had. So there's one time, I'll just share this kind of a one-off story. I'm changing command at this hospital that I was in command of. It was Friday. Monday was my first day at the job, and I put my gym gear on. I go running out the front door because I used to jog back then at lunch, and just kind of running, frankly, the fence line of the hospital, the command. And I come up to this young man who's smoking in uniform, and by the smoke pit, I guess we had, he's puffing away, and I go running up to him. I say, hey man, how you doing? He goes, good, how are you? Well, in the military, any officer, you're going to say, yes, sir. Something, sir, especially the commanding officer. The point is, this guy didn't know who I was. Good in. I just took command 2 days ago in my civilian clothes at my gym gear. So I said, hey man, I'm new to the command. What do you think? Tell me, what's it like here? And this kid's puffing away, going through all the dirt in the command, all the bad stuff going on. And I'm trying not to look shocked because I had gone through this transition the week before. But he's going on and on about bad stuff. And I'm trying to retain it. It was rich information, and he's puffing away. In the course of the conversation, he goes, I asked him, I said, where do you work? And he told me, he goes, where do you work? I said, well, I'm your commanding officer. I swallowed his cigarette, coughed, and left in a trail of smoke. And I yelled at him. I said, I'll never tell my source. And I never did. I never saw I saw the kid running around every time I'd see him, he kind of hide because he was so concerned about what he had told me. But everything that kid told me was the truth. Everything that kid told me was gospel truth. The people that work for you know exactly what's going on, way better than you do. It's just the way it is. You're just too busy. You want to mine that information. And one way to do it is just kind of walk around and just, what can I do to help? The more they're at ease with you, man, you're going to, more times than not, make the right decisions. And by definition, is anyone transitioning to a new director of tennis position anytime soon? Anyone selected? Well, let's just say I am. So I get selected to be director of tennis in, I don't know, somewhere in Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. How intimidating am I going to be when I first show up to all the people? Pretty damn intimidating. I'm the boss. They don't even know me yet. And I'm a pretty good guy, and hopefully they'll get to know that. But initially, it's like, oh my God, he's the boss. By definition, we're intimidated. Because we control these people. We control whether they get a paycheck or not, frankly. That's a lot of power. So we don't want to be intimidated. We want to let them be relaxed when we're around them, so they'll tell us what's going on. All right, so be visible. Let's talk about this one. Oh, be visible. We kind of talked about this guy, Zelensky, this morning. He's visible, and he's empowering their people, man. This is a case study that's being played out. Hell, he couldn't kill as I'm talking right now. I have no idea. But regardless if you think this guy's crooked or not, it doesn't matter. He's pretty damn brave. And he's there in the fight in Ukraine. He's visible, and he is inspiring the people. That's it. I mean, you can't argue that. And if you, like I said this morning, every time he's in a photo, you can see, I guess this is some very unique building, and He wants to make sure people know I'm here, I'm not in Paris. So let's talk about dignity and respect. Dignity and respect. Always treat all staff with dignity and respect. That's, you know, and I can almost guarantee everybody in this room has something like that in their principles and guiding principles or something. Every organization has it. And that's easier for me on a Friday when everything is going well, really hard on Monday when something happened, and now there's your crucible moment. There's your crucible. Every interaction impacts trust. One of the toughest ones is when you get bad news. Bad news comes with the territory. You don't have a choice. You do not get a choice with that. The only choice you have is how do I react when this young man just came in and told me some really bad news. So I'm in Rota, Spain, COO of that little hospital over there. And we're 3 months away from a major inspection. It's called a Joint Commission. Big bottom line, it's a big deal. Every 3 years, every hospital in the military gets inspected. It's a big deal. Everyone gets freaked out. And we're preparing for this inspection in 3 months. And interesting enough, I was leaving in 3 months. About the same time the inspections were coming, it just worked out that way. My boss at the time had a very bad anger issue. I was a COO, he was a CEO. And every time I brought him bad news, some level of anger, blow up, nuclear explosion, some level, it was a horrible place to work, frankly. It was a great deal of fear. I couldn't wait to leave. Rota, Spain was the most beautiful place in the world. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there because it was such a culture of fear. It was just a tough place to work because of this person's anger issue. So we're getting ready for this big inspection. Everyone's getting amped up. I had different officers going out to different parts of the hospital, the command, inspecting. So it's Thursday night, and a routine inspection was, this guy was doing a pre-inspection, this young man working for me, comes in and says, "Sir, I just want to let you know, I just did the inspection of the lab. And the lab is all good, sir. All the blood products were in date. Everything was good, sir. Temperature log was taken, all these little things. And I'm taking notes, sounds pretty routine. I said, he said, "Sir, I also went into the freezer. And I saw all the fresh frozen plasma. All the plasma was good, sir. All the temperature log was, everything was good." I said, "This is routine. It's Thursday. I'm going to get out of here in about 5 minutes." And he says, "Sir, one other thing. I went in the freezer, sir, like I said, and behind some boxes, I found a leg." And literally, I looked up. I said, "Oh, a leg? What do you mean a leg?" And he goes, "Sir, a human leg, looks like a below the amputation, sir. Frozen solid, little tag on it with the last 4 of a social security number. Looks like it's been there 5 years, sir." And I'm trying not to look, I'm trying to listen like we talked about this morning, but I had a lot of thoughts race through my head. First thought was, I've been in the Navy 22 years at that point. Missed the class on what you do when you find a body part in a building. I had no idea what to do. The second thing, I had the pity party. I'm leaving in 3 months. The damn leg's been there 5 years. Why'd they have to find it now? They just leave it for the next guy to deal with. And the third thing was, holy smokes, man. Because the boss had well gone for the day. They were going to be back in the morning. And I had to tell the boss in the morning, and that's going to be ugly. This is not good news. So the lieutenant who's briefing me, very sharp guy, he goes, "Sir, one other thing with that leg. I know you don't want to deal with it, sir, so here's the deal. We can get rid of it tonight." I said, "What do you mean get rid of it tonight?" He goes, "Sir, I'm the facilities manager. We had this contract with the Spanish incineration team out in town. I'm getting these boxes together all the time. They come on the base, they take the boxes off the base, they burn the boxes in an incinerator. Tonight, I'll get some boxes together. I'll call them up, they'll take the boxes off the base and burn them. Except tonight, I'll slip the leg in one of the boxes." I'm thinking, that's not a bad idea. He goes, "Sir, it's a great idea. Let's make it happen. We'll get rid of that thing right now." I said, wait a minute. The leg's been in there, what, 5 years, you said?" He goes, "Yes, sir." I said, "It can wait another night. This doesn't seem right." Hello, that was not a good course of action. As he's leaving my office, he makes one more appeal. He goes, "Sir, if you want me to burn that leg, just call me on the cell phone. We'll make it happen. Just call me." He leaves my office. I look at my inbox. I had a million things going on that day. I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to make that phone call. I drive home that night. I kept looking at my cell phone on my seat. I kept saying, just one phone call. This all goes away. Get home and tell my wife, Chris. She said, "You're not thinking of burning that leg, are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm thinking about it." She says, "You can't burn that leg. You got to man up and tell the boss," because she knew about this anger issue. And she was absolutely right. Chris is always my wise counsel. So I go in the next day and tell the boss, nuclear explosion of energy. Was that a distraction? I'm telling you, man, I didn't think of it at the time because you're just trying to deal with it. I could not make a decision that day. I had a lot of evaluations I had to do. Evaluations in the military are very, very important. Folks in the military know. and I was kind of prepping these. This is very important. I couldn't make a decision. I was kind of paralyzed, man. I don't want to say I was wimpy, but I was not efficient. And that weekend, my family and I went off somewhere beautiful in Spain. I remember this was like a black cloud over my head. I felt like I had disappointed the boss. I was distracted. Like I said this morning, distractions are not good. I tell you, I do coaching for this lady. Well, let me just finish this story, because sometimes I forget, and people say, what the hell happened to the leg? Where'd you find out? So what happened, we did a root cause analysis, we call it, and there was a motorcycle accident 5 years before, and somehow, it was certainly an amputation, somehow got lost in this freezer for 5 years. Never did figure it out. We did some things to make sure it wouldn't happen again. It was a one-off. Inspectors came in, we passed it, it was good. But the point of the story is, I was not on my game. And for you, again, we talked about this morning, you got people, I'm sure you got some beginners who just barely hit the ball, to people who are competing at a very, very high level. But irregardless, if they're distracted, they're not going to be on their game. And there's enough distractions out there. As leaders, we don't want to create them. And getting angry and not good. They cause distractions. So I coached this young lady who's a tremendously talented doctor. She's dual board certified. If you know anything about that, it's a big deal. Emergency medicine is something else. She is super smart, super talented, just an amazing leader. We're all gonna work for her someday. She's so smart. She's working for a horrible leader, kind of like the person I'm talking to. And she called me up the other day. She goes, Mark, I'm concerned. I was working in the ER, and I just got, I had a bad interaction with my boss, and I couldn't make a decision. So I want to shut that door. Thanks. And I couldn't make a decision. And it was the same thing. She was distracted. She goes, Mark, there's a routine thing. I said, what'd you have about it? So creating, and I'm thinking for you, I really was thinking at lunch, I don't know, man, I'm not a tennis pro. I played tennis in the Philippines. I played for many years, but I was never good, trust me. But I'm just thinking, when I go for a backhand, you can do a couple things with a backhand. You can either try crushing it down the line or just kind of, and if you've got your confidence, you're going to try to crush it down the line and kill it. And I don't know, you get probably a bad analogy, but the point is leaders, you don't want to create distractions, period. Whether you're coaching or whether you've got a team underneath. Just before I end up this story, and I've thought a lot about this, and I think I put it in the book. I'm pretty sure I did. I hope I did. I haven't read this chapter in a while. But that Admiral I was telling you about, Admiral Faison, he went on to be Surgeon General. The guy was a tremendous leader, man. Really a tremendous leader. We had all these hospitals across the Pacific, and there were like 12 time zones. So he told me, he goes, Mark, bad news doesn't get good with time. If there's any bad news, because I would usually get the bad news from the commanding officer somewhere in the Pacific. He goes, just tell me, because I don't want to wake up to, just call me any time of the day. Well, 12 o'clock in Yokosuka, Japan, midnight is noon, our time, or vice versa. Noon, their time is midnight. The point is, I always got bad news at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'd call the Admiral up. The first time I did, I said, we'll see what happens here. Sir, I just want to let you know we had, Marines that jumped off a truck and ran into a bunch of Japanese women and killed one of them, whatever, some weird-ass story. I can't make this stuff up. And I'm waiting for the reaction, because I just come back from that tour in Rhoda with a person had an anger issue. And he'd say, Mark, this is his standard, basically. Mark, I can't. Are you sure that's a true story? That just seems too inconceivable. That's unbelievable. I think I've heard everything. Well, take care of it and let me know what you come up with. And it was like, whoa, he never got mad. Never got mad. And it was kind of a morale-enhancing event for me, because I'd always call him up, and sometimes he'd laugh going, that's the craziest thing I've heard in my life. He'd always say, take care of it, Mark, and let me know what I can do to help. He was awesome. Complete opposite. And I was at my top of my game in that tour, because I knew I had the liberty to do things I needed to do. It was a culture of trust, that's it. He's based on his many, many behaviors, but certainly when bad news came, this guy never got mad. There you go. Never shoot the messenger. All right, this is a fascinating book, Captain's Class. Anyone ever read this book, Sam Brouker? He's a journalist with the Wall Street Journal. Bottom line is this in a nutshell. He wanted to, by statistics, identify the 16 most powerful sports teams in the last 100 years, all sports. And he wanted to see what was the common theme amongst these 16 high-performing teams. And he identifies the 16 teams, and one of them was the women's soccer team between 96 and 99. apparently that team, if there are any soccer fans out there, it was unbelievable. They did not lose. And then you read some of these games they had, just amazing, high-performing team. And this team, like the other 15, had something in common. And what they had was, well, I'll just tell you, they were led by leaders, and they weren't always the best players. It wasn't the Tom Brady's of these teams. They weren't always the best players, but they encouraged everyone to speak up. And more importantly is they listened. Remember we talked about that common theme of listening. They had leaders who listened. So if the person who was the scrub player, the number 14 player on the bench, if she said something, they all listened. Because they valued everyone's input. And they showed it by listening, paraphrasing, and following up. And they had many interactions. Remember we talked about every interaction is an opportunity to build trust. Walking around, you're just creating more interactions. They created a lot of interactions because they talked and asked for input and listened to people. It was just, and that was the common theme amongst all these teams, the volleyball teams, soccer teams, just all these different teams. Really quite a fascinating study. And he went into that kind of study, if you will. That was not his conclusion. He's going to say, well, there's always some player who's just tremendous and they all feed off this person's energy. It wasn't that at all. A lot of these people they called them glue players. Have you ever heard that term? It just brings everyone together. There's a good example, I can't think off the top of my head. This is a great one. I don't follow basketball, so this is way out of my league here, but I'm from Boston, so Boston Celtics playing pretty well. I read an article, didn't you know about the coach of the Boston Celtics? He was not a good player. He was a B team player at best. He got picked up by the Portland Trailblazers. But the point is, he was a glue player. He's one of these people who just made everyone play better and listened well. Now he's coaching the Celtics, and apparently they're doing very well. The team that, frankly, there's no millionaires on it. All these players came up through the system. All right, let's talk about this. So know your staff, be visible, be respectful. Don't ignore good or poor performance. Set expectations. And for me, and it's probably the same for you. I mean, I would imagine that you want your employees to treat your customers really well. I think that kind of goes with the territory. You'd think the same thing in the military, that we would treat others well. No, that wasn't the case. So my thing was, you treat people with respect, and if you start getting mad at someone, just say, you know what, I gotta take a break now. Do not get mad at people. Don't lose your temper. It's disrespectful. I don't like that. And I was very adamant about that. So set expectations, and if you say, I want you to treat people when they treat people well, and we talked about it this morning, tell them, great job. Great job. I mean, accolades in saying good job, they're so easy. And Ken, you did a great job with this, Ken. I'm talking about you, man. You did a great job. You were easy to work with. You're fun and Bill, of course, you're a wingman. But it's every time I deal with it, with the tennis groups, this is like my 6th event. It's just, you're a fun group, and thank you. It's well deserved. And it took probably 5 seconds to do that. So when they meet your expectations, tell them. Don't leave that gold on the table, man. It's powerful. And I'll share with you this book. I mentioned it this morning. This book called, With the Old Breed. It's a military analogy, but it brings it home. This guy was in the Battle of Peleliu and the Battle of the Pacific, blah, blah, blah. And he was basically a replacement for all these old Marines who had been in other battles. So just imagine, I'm trying to think of an analogy. These folks have been through battle and you're new. You haven't been proven. You're kind of a new Marine and you're just a newbie. And you've all been there. You join a winning team and you're new. It's like, ooh, you want to be part of the team, but you're really not. So this guy goes to this Battle of Peleliu, and this old Marine, basically a person who's been in the Marines probably a year more, but had other experience, said to him, and in the book he writes this, Sledge, the guy's name is, these 2 pages, it's just, the guy writes so well. He basically said, this book's like 300 pages, these 2 pages, he goes, one of the old breed, one of the folks who had been in battle said to me, he said, hey Sledge, I was really worried about you in Peleliu. I didn't think you were going to deliver. I had my doubts about you, but you did a good job. You were a good Marine. And this guy writes this, it was, that meant more to me than anything in my entire Marine Corps experience. So an accolade, it's extremely powerful. They're free, use them. Let's talk about something that is not so much fun, the other side of the coin. I'll share with you, when I had someone not performing well, I knew it and I would ignore it because I just didn't want to deal with it. There it is. And now in retrospect, I think back, and so my question to you is, why is it difficult addressing poor performance? And I'll share with you before you even answer. By statistics and study, it's a fact. No matter what leadership position you're in, whether you're running a General Motors or you're running a tennis club in Hyannis Beach, Cape Cod, with 5 people, and everything in between, and across cultures. This is across Singapore and all the every culture. The number one stressor for a leader is this: having a difficult conversation. So if you struggle with this, you're in good company. Some people are less bad than others. I was not good at this, frankly. So my question is, and I don't have an answer to this, I really want to solicit your thoughts. Why is it difficult to address someone who's not performing where you want them to perform? Please.
Could be a reflection on yourself as a leader.
There you go. Jocko Willink would say absolutely correct. You failed. And think about this. If you work for me and I said, hey man, let's talk about why you're not, I don't know, you're not coming here on time. Maybe I didn't make that clear. I'll own some of that. And I will talk about how the words to address that specifically. But if you own that for the first time, if this continues, obviously you got to ratchet it up. Man, that's a pretty nice message. And maybe I didn't teach you how to do that back end as well as I should have. Let's talk about it. So if you own part of it, that's a good way to enter that into the conversation. But yeah, that could be it. I kind of failed. I don't want to admit failure. No one wants to do that. That's a good one. Actually, I haven't heard that one. That's a good one. Yes. Hold up for it. Yes.
Let me gather my thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think
nice and loud.
We're having a hard time when it's difficult to address poor performance because we have to say why we didn't do this, and you use the negation, the no word, and you have to say it in a different way so it's not negative. Because it's very easy to say no to everything, and how would you say the no when you didn't? Not using a negative word to it.
You're giving me a perfect segue into how to do that. Because you don't know why. I don't know. What's your name, sir?
Dan.
Dan? I don't know why Dan's coming in late. I'm assuming the guy's out drinking and partying and just, he's basically disrespecting me because I told him to be here at 8. He's rolling in at 8:15 every damn day, and I'm getting a little pissed about this. It's basically disrespecting me at a visceral level, at a negative level. So that's not a good way to enter the conversation. That's how I used to enter the conversation, saying, you're pissing me off because you're dissing me. So we'll talk about the words you can use to not do that. And I wish I had this conversation 20 years ago with myself, because I didn't know this. So hold that thought, but that is the essence of it. Jorge, what?
Some people don't like confrontations.
Let me just, that's exactly what was said yesterday amongst this junior. I'm just going to jump there. I don't think anyone likes confrontation. I think Putin maybe likes confrontation. I don't know. But people, I hate confrontation. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Jorge, you don't like it, but not as bad as I do. No one really likes it. But people hate it more than others. I really hate it. And I don't know, Greg, maybe everyone's different, but I don't think anyone likes confrontation. Unless you're, Tyson, I don't know, who knows? I'm not a psychiatrist. But I've never met a leader who said, I like confrontation, let's get it on. I don't think that's the case. But I think there are degrees of that. But you're absolutely right. I don't like confrontation. I'd rather have everything happy. Everyone's happy, let's all come to work. How about one more? Yes, please, sir.
I'd say the flip side of that I've wrestled with a lot is the desire for approval yourself. Part of being at the head of the food chain is you kind of subtly get into the idea that people look up to you.
Yep.
And so when you go into that discussion, you're risking that somewhere.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
If I may, the other thing that I've really wrestled with a lot is that negatively projecting the reaction of the person that you're dealing with in terms of they're going to get really pissed off. They're going to, in this environment, people have a lot of options, right?
Yep.
So I would tend to negatively project in ways that I shouldn't.
Yeah, well, that's what I did. sometimes pretty blatantly, frankly. So go ahead, yeah, please.
I was going to say, as a leader, are we ready to accept the answers?
There you go. I mean, you're basically uncorking, you don't know what the hell's going to happen. It's all unpredictable. Everyone has emotions, and I hate to say baggage, but people have emotions, and hell, you don't know what's going to happen, man. You're basically uncorking the genie. You know what's going to come out of there. The opposite of this is, what's the ramifications if you don't? If Dan's coming in late and I just ignore it, what are the ramifications? Because you have, again, choices. You can either address it or you don't. And if you don't, what's the logical ramifications? Gets worse. Perfect. Worse meaning, you know what, you're coming in at 8:15. I don't like getting up. I'd rather hit my alarm a couple of times. I'll get it there at 8:15. Dan's getting away with it. I'll get away with it. And it spreads, and it usually does. And sometimes it gets worse, maybe 8:30. I'll test 8:45. So what else? What are the other? I mean, that's basically in a nutshell. But when you, yeah, please, sir.
Even if it doesn't get worse, I found that people just stay the way they are. They don't change. So if they're okay, but they're not great.
Yeah.
What I would tend to do is go, okay, accept them the way they are. But the problem now is, now you got to step up. So it would put more on me.
Yeah.
I just say, I'll go do it. It's not that hard.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, you're getting all stressed out.
And you die a young death. And you die a young death because you're sticking your fingers all over the place.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I had a thought and I lost my thought, man. This is such a rich comment. Joe, please help me out.
Well, I think that
Nice to meet you.
I'm Sophie, by the way. If something does not happen the way it should, and you address it, and then it still doesn't happen the way it should, and you address it, and 15 years later you're still seeing the same problem, so then you're looking at a situation where after 15 years you still haven't found a solution.
Yeah.
I want to take an example of something extremely simple. We have an enormous ball budget. We have, 6 or 7 cars of 150 balls that you have to change regularly. It's an enormous ball budget, but every night there's going to be 40 balls around the club somewhere that haven't been picked up. And for 15 years I've struggled with the idea of, how do we get those balls picked up? Does the person in the office pick the balls up? What if the pro finishes after the office? Does the pro that was on court 6 pick the balls up? What if at the end of the day he ended up on court 12? And what about the pro that has the tiny tot program that has 55 balls out? So problem is not solved. It's been addressed. It's not solved. I don't have a solution. Therefore, I don't want to address it anymore.
Well, I have a thought, but it's a tactical solution. I know what I would do if I was running that directors of tennis thing.
Tell me.
I would start picking them up.
Exactly.
And don't even mention anything. Word will spread. Again, if you have trust, if you're doing all the things we're doing, and you start on a Friday, I know you're busy, but I tell you, what would happen? If you have trust, if you have fear, you'll be out there picking them up alone ad nauseum. It won't work.
I have an answer for Sophie. We started a program called Field Trips. Whoever hits the ball has to get it. So the student has to go out there, he being off the court, they got to go get it. There's no balls to be out there at the end of the day.
I mean, there's probably a million ways to solve this. I mean, you guys know this way better than I do. I'm just thinking, when I was running command, we'd get sloppy, and we'd have garbage around. And Bremerton was a very green place, literally green, but also people like clean. And so I just started cleaning stuff up when I was on my job. I'd bring a bag and clean stuff up. Well, guess what happened? Everyone was cleaning up, and we had a clean command. I didn't have to say a word. And it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of a pain in the butt to bend down and pick up. I wanted to just jog, but it created, I guess it created a buzz because it solved the problem. So I don't know, it's just something to think about. When you guys have a beers tonight, bring it up, because I think it's a legitimate problem. Think if you extrapolate that over a year, that's a lot of money, I'm guessing. I'm not an expert on tennis balls, but it's a lot of money. So let me just say something. I think I have it up here. Yeah. I don't have my status quo. So let me just go back. Someone said something that was important, and everything you said was important. That is a legitimate problem. Hopefully, you guys can get together and kind of solve it. I think jumping on it would be good. But again, you got a culture fear that's you're going to be really busy picking up balls for the next 5 years. But if you do these things, you got to trust. I think people will jump on board. The status quo. Well, please.
Be able to hire fast.
That might be cost productive, cost effective.
It might pay for itself.
It might pay for itself, exactly.
Go to buy.
That's thinking out of the box. So the first question I would say, if Dan's coming in late, just use that example, is the status quo acceptable? And I think that's not acceptable, but there's others that could be acceptable. Let me just give you an example. I can't translate it into a tennis analogy off the top of my head, but let me just throw this out there. Maybe you can come up with it yourself. I gave this talk to a bunch of medical people, and this lab guy came up to me and said, listen, here's the deal, man. I got 5 people who work for me. 4 of them can crank out those slides really quickly. They do these slices and stuff. They do these things to see if you have a cancer. Very important stuff. And this one guy's slow. These people can do 5 an hour. This guy can only do 3. And I want to speed him up. And I don't know how to approach that. What do you think? I said, well, tell me, is this guy, is he productive? Is he a good employee? You know, is he a rebel rouser? No, he's a great guy. Everyone loves him. He's kind of the glue guy. He's a good guy. I said, so is the mission being accomplished? Which is something is your mission at the director of the tennis club being accomplished? Or is this guy, kind of submarining your efforts? And he goes, no, it's this guy's, a mission's being accomplished. And I said, listen, I've only spoken for like 30 seconds, but I don't know, man. I wouldn't go down that road. I think the status quo is acceptable. Because you tell me this guy's good, he's just not fast. And if you put pressure on this guy to increase his productivity, that could be a distraction for him, depending how you do it. And I don't know if it's worth it. You've got to make that decision. It's your choice. But I don't know, man. You're telling me, I think it's, and the morale's fine. No one's pissed off this guy's only doing 3. And everyone knows it's just him. So the first thing I would say is the status quo acceptable? 95% of the time, it will not be. But before you go down that road, just have that discussion. The person you want to talk to about that is a trusted colleague. You've got the wealth of knowledge in this room is enormous. It's enormous, and you all know each other. If you don't, you should get to know each other and have a beer and exchange cards. And so you can call Jorge up. Hey, Jorge's probably seen everything. And say, hey man, I had that happen to me. Here's something you can just get some thoughts on. There's a lot of knowledge in this room and experience. So before you go down that road, just talk to someone. Someone's probably been in your shoes before. And this is the answer to your question, in my opinion. Here's what I would do if Dan's coming in. And this is not a Mark Brouker thing. This is Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Has anyone read that book? It's a great book. It's a great book. If you've never read a book on leadership, even before my book, read Stephen Covey's book. It's tremendous. He died a few years ago, but it's timeless. One of his 7 habits is seek first understand. What does that mean? Here's what it means. Dan's coming in late. What I used to do when that happened is say, hey Dan, we talked about this like in the past. This is in my good moment, without being mad. This is the best effort I could give. Dan, we've talked about in the past being here at 8. You're coming in at like 8:15. Hey man, you just got to get here at 8. If I let you get away with it, everyone else is going to do it. So please, let's get here at 8. It's kind of a rah-rah speech. That's one way to do it. Here's a much better way to do it. Stephen Covey would say, Dan, you're a great employee here. You do great work. Help me understand why you're having a tough time getting here at 8 o'clock. That's it. And you're not doing it like, Dan, help me understand what's going on. No, it's like, help me understand. You have an intellectual curiosity to know what is actually going on. Because when I started doing that, I'm telling you, 7 times out of 10, well, my wife is sick. Sometimes pretty tough stuff. Breast cancer treatment, kid with autism, spectrum, all these things that happen in life. And I'm trying to get my wife to her treatment and get home in time. I just can't get here. And once you have that, guess what? Dude, get here at 8:30. Matter of fact, get here at 9. Just spend an extra hour picking up balls for me until 7. So don't stress getting here. This is really, what's that going to do for trust when you help solve the problem? Oh my God. Now again, it's not perfect. You're going to get there's always snakes in the grass. There's always snakes in the grass. And my boss used to say, Mark, everyone's got a seat on the bus. Sometimes they're on the wrong bus. We got to get them on the right bus. Some people aren't cut out to be in your tennis club. And that's the vast not the majority, but sometimes it's not a good fit, and you just let them go. And if you've got a rebel rouser in your mix, and you've been there, you've seen this yourself, but you're all colleagues. We're all colleagues. And I'm coming in late, I'm giving half an effort, I'm just barely squeaking by, and Jorge, you finally get rid of me after a lot of counseling, and I get fired. What are you going to say about Jorge, the boss? Thank God we got rid of Brouker. What a guy. Thank you, Jorge. You're the man. So it's not inhumane to let people go. And if you've got, again, this is not the first thing you do. There's lots of things you can do, and most people want to do a great job coming to work, but sometimes there's snakes in the grass. Not everyone is a perfect fit. If there's a perfect fit, you do a DNA sample and say, you're going to do this. It's not the case. So, thank you. So don't be afraid to let people go. Again, there's things we got to do to mine what gifts do they have that can help my club be the best club we can possibly make. But at the end of the day, if you tried all resources, it's okay. And it's no reflection on you. It is what it is. All right. And then I just said that. And in the book, I say, the team's performance is not great about what you say, it's great about what you tolerate. If you tolerate 8:15, guess what? That's a new norm. You just lower the standards. That's it, in a nutshell. So optimism, let's talk about this one real quick. Colin Powell, I told you this morning how his skill, this guy had a million skills, but his primary skill was listening. He was a tremendous listener. He crafted that skill. And what he says is perpetual optimism, force multiplier. It spreads. Cynicism negatively also spread. And one thing we just got a quick review is why is that the case? Is because what you do is emulated. What you do is emulated. We showed that study, 60% of the people are going to emulate what you do. 6 out of 10 on average. If you're really charismatic, maybe 8 out of 10. Charismatic being you're really charismatic, pessimistic leader, you're going to spread poison. How many people have heard of this guy, Sir Ernest Shackleton? Yeah, well, you're going to hear about him. So here's the deal with this guy. English explorer, 1914. He wants to be the first human being to traverse the Antarctic ice shelf via the South Pole. 1914. He picks, hand selects these 28 men. Very quirky way he selects these guys, which is all in these books I'll show you at the end. But he selects these guys, and they sail down on this rickety ship, the Endurance, which they just found this ship about a month ago. Actually, in the bottom of the Antarctic Ocean, it's intact. They're not going to get it up, but there's no worms to eat the wood and stuff. Anyway, they sail down there. Unfortunately, it's an unusually cold winter, and the ship starts getting engulfed in the ice floe. These photographs are actually stunning. And this is a really stunning photo. I have 2 photos in the book, and this is one of them. And this is why this is so stunning. When this photo was taken, so you can see the ship in the background, it's stuck in the ice floe. At night, when this photo is taken, the ship is slowly getting crushed by the icebergs and the moving ice, and they're sleeping on the ship at this point. They can hear the timbers bursting. I can't imagine how anyone's sleeping under those conditions. When this photo is taken, that's how they're sleeping on the ship. 4 months, they're looking at 4 months of complete darkness. The sun's going to set, it's not going to rise again for 4 months. They're running out of food. There's no communication, there's no WhatsApp, there's no social media, there's nothing. It's 1914. Life and death struggle. And if you look at the photograph closely, right in the center, you can't see it, it's a white soccer ball, but this guy, you can see he's kind of hunched over, soccer pole, goal post. They're playing soccer on the ice floe. It's like, wait a minute. I know Europeans like soccer, but this is kind of a life and death situation. And if you read diary entries, and these guys kept really good diaries, they're all in this book, Endurance by Lansing. Again, I have these listed at the end. They all say the same thing. We're going to get out of here. Shackleton's going to get us out. He's the man. They call him the boss. This guy was such an amazing leader. But one of his primary, and what got them out of there was optimism. He got the people believing, gave them the hope that they're going to get out of there, and against all odds, they get out of there alive. It takes 2 years. And what they did was, it hasn't been replicated since then. This is 1914, and they were all decimated with hunger, but they still made it through these mountains over Elephant Island. It's an amazing story. Matter of fact, real quick, when I was writing the book in this chapter, I had a job up in LA. I was taking the train. If you're taking the train from San Diego to LA, it's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm typing away, and this guy sits down next to me, and he asked me to start a conversation. What are you doing? I'm writing a book, Optimism. He goes, what are you writing about this guy, Shackleton? I said, what do you do? I'm a movie producer. I said, dude, I don't know anything about movies, but this is an amazing story. You don't have to make anything up. Read the book, Endurance, make a movie about it, and you're going to make $1 million. Well, he didn't take my advice because there's no movie. But it's an amazing story. You don't have to make anything up. Another, again, an iconic photograph. This ship is about ready to go, and these guys are waving like it's a parade. They want to make sure they get photographed. And this is one of the books that I would recommend. And Shackman, he believed it or not, was a little bit something before to talk about it. It became a culture. He gave them hope, and Napoleon famously said, a leader has to be a dealer in hope. You got to give your people hope. And the great ones we'll talk about that in just a second as we close. A pessimistic leader causes more harm than an absent leader. And if you've worked for someone who's always wringing their hands, everything's glass is half empty, and the day they don't show up, that's a kind of a reprieve. It's kind of nice when they don't show up. So what I like about this is it's a true statement. And again, when we consider that everything we do is emulated, you can see where this is even more impactful. So with that, you have, again, choices. You can be optimistic, fake it, or don't show up. But if you show up in a bad mood, negative, pessimistic, that has ramifications, man. People are going to pick up on that. If you do it a lot, it's going to spread. It's poison. It's poison. And then faking it, I get a lot of questions about, hey man, if you do that, you're going to lose credibility. Well, no one knows whether you're faking it or not. I mean, let's be honest. My old boss at Mofasa, the guy, we get these weird emails from this craziest stuff, and this one time he got an email from someone who wanted to call a commandant in the Marine Corps. I mean, this is the man, the highest ranking Marine Corps officer in the Navy, the Marine Corps, but part of the Navy, sends him an email saying, Forrest, there was a big incident in Camp Pendleton last night where Corporal Schmuckatelli got the wrong medication. I want to know what the hell's going on. What kind of hospitals are you running out there? So I read the emails for the Admiral before he gets in the morning. So he comes in the morning, and we all smile. Hey, Mark, how you doing? I said, good, sir. Hey, did you read the emails? Oh, yeah, guys, I read them all. How about the one from the Commandant of the Marine Corps? Oh, yeah, I read that one. We'll take care of it. So how's the family? I said, sir, you sure you read the whole thing? It sounds, we'll take care of it. And I'm thinking, is he faking it or not? I don't know. He probably was faking it. I didn't care. And people loved him for it. He ran the tightest ship. The guy was awesome. I loved working for that man. I worked my tail off. So this is for my Army buddies. This is General Eisenhower on the left. And if you look at that photo, I think you'd conclude that man looks pretty confident. He looks pretty optimistic. The other folks, not so much. They're going into battle. He's kind of talking to them before they go into battle. What's amazing about this photograph is when that photograph was taken, he was writing to his boss. Eisenhower was writing to Marshall and was saying literally this, written down. It's been difficult to show optimism in front of my troops, basically. And Atkinson, who wrote a book, a tremendous author, said, for now, the concealment of his anxieties is part of the art of leadership. It's beautiful language. So for us, who knows what the next COVID thing is going to be? We just don't know. We don't know. There's unknowns out there. But when these things happen, if you get in front of your troops and show panic, that's not good. This guy, Stavridis, wrote a book, Leaders Bookshelf, nutshell real quick, reviewed 50 books on leadership, great leaders, and they want to know what was the common theme amongst these leaders. Well, there are two common themes amongst great leaders, and we talked about, energy, discipline, and time. What he came up with, there's two. One, you got to be optimistic. The great leaders are always optimistic. They see through the trouble. They can see a good future. They can give people hope. The second is they always stay calm. They don't panic, and that's a gift. And how many of those folks are faking it? I have no idea. But staying calm in the midst of a tumultuous situation is a key ingredient in a leader. And I'll just show you real quick with Eisenhower. When that photo was taken, you can't even see this. The man was smoking 4 packs of unfiltered Camel cigarettes a day. And not surprising, he died of heart disease in Walter Reed years ago, in the 60s. But that's how nervous he was. But that picture looks like he's pretty confident and optimistic. All right, let's see, we're almost done here. A leader must not appear to be overly naive. Acknowledge the challenge, don't mire in it. And that's really, really, really hard. When COVID hit your clubs, I had no idea. Everyone was dealing with this thing differently. You've got to give your people hope that we'll get through this, but you got to be realistic. This is a situation we're probably going to have to shut down for. I have no idea how you dealt with it. Probably different things around the country. But at the end of the day, you've got to give your people hope that you're going to get through this, and there's going to be a better day, and that is a gift. But you can't ignore the elephant in the room. All right, the last thing. So real quick, we basically got 1 minute and we're done. Know your staff. Be visible. Be respectful. Don't ignore good or poor performance. Be optimistic, upbeat. And this one is the last one. Continue to learn the art of leadership. Why is this in here? It's the shortest chapter in the book, but it's as important as anything else. You've all been such a great audience. And I am convinced that over the next few weeks, few months, maybe year, that you'll be picking up the right tool. You'll say, oh yeah, I remember that story about whatever, the leg can't get mad, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to be better leaders over the next period of time. But if you don't remind yourself, this is all common sense, man. Everything we talked about is common sense. If you don't remind yourself, you can slip into those bad habits. So you probably should be continuously relearn the art of leadership. And I asked someone, I can't remember who it was, to collect the podcasts that people listen to and share them. Today, you don't have to read a book at night trying to stay awake. I'm driving, I got a long drive in front of me here, but I'm going to be listening to podcasts. It's easy. You're in a car, it's a beautiful thing. So on your commutes, just listen to podcasts. Remind yourself of these things, and you're more likely to pick up that right tool when that crucible moment comes. And I'd like you guys, Bill, will they get the they can have it, the slide deck. Yeah, you're going to have it? Okay. Yeah, I'll send it to
$12.
There's a man always looking to make sure.
Oh, okay.
There you go. I'll make sure I send it to Ken. So you don't have to, but there's a lot of information out there. These are books, but there's tremendous podcasts, easy to listen to. And that's my book. Everything we just talked about is in the book. I have a TED Talk. That's my contact information, website, and I do have my phone number up there. I don't know. I know I'm probably at the limit or maybe beyond. I have no idea. Probably, when I'm at 4 o'clock?
4:03.
Oh, 4:03. All right. Well, I'm past my time. So if you guys have to hustle out, please hustle out. If you want to stick around and ask me a question or two or concerns or thoughts, feel free. You don't have to leave right away. So I'm available, but again, I got to respectfully your time. So thank you for giving me 3 extra minutes. I appreciate it.